Hi everyone, this is Devin Boker, and you are listening to The Wildlife. Today we revisit an episode from March 24th of 2018. It's a story that takes us all the way from Copenhagen to the rainforest of South America, from the belly of the beast to its excrement, as we explore nature's vampires. Our guest, our guide, was Dr. Lisandra Zepeda-Mendoza, who had recently finished her postdoc in Copenhagen and whose recently published research on vampire bats and how they survive on such a peculiar diet was at the center of the story. Now, a couple of notes, one of which will be repeated. If you are a squeamish person, things like blood or vomit, you might want to skip out on this episode. I don't recommend it. I recommend you stick around, but I'm just saying. Also, this is a throwback back to 2018. That is when my brother was still on as a co-host, and there's also some bits that we did, some shticks, like my wife coming on to I guess be the anthropomorphization of a turkey vulture. You'll see. It's difficult to explain and very, very silly. Now, the story about how this episode came to be is kind of an odd one. You see, Copenhagen is about 7 hours time difference. And while I've done a lot of international interviews, for some reason, and I can't remember why, we just could not seem to nail down a solid time to get this thing done. And well, we had a creative solution. I sent the outline and the list of questions over to her, and she would reply with voice memos that she recorded on her phone that I could use as the sound bites, which literally has never been done at any other point in the history of the wildlife. This was the one single time that this has ever happened. But you might be able to tell. I don't know. Maybe we did a decent enough job with editing. Who knows? We'll see. You'll see. But no, at 0 point did I actually have a live conversation with the guest of this episode. It was correspondence back and forth, questions via email, responses via voice memo, follow-up questions via email, responses via voice memo. And that's just kind of how we made it work. And if you think that's crazy, just wait, because in a couple of these other revisiting ones, I think the next one, I have got a story. Anyway, I just thinking back to the time of which we put this thing together, that we made this. I did not have a solid recording space. I had a little Samson Go mic that I attached to the top of my laptop. I got on a conversation with my brother via Skype, and we were using Audacity as our recording and editing program. Recording? You know what I mean. Oh, yeah, and as far as where I was recording, it was my closet. Yep. I would say walk-in closet, but it wasn't. It was like a hallway between our bedroom and the bathroom at our old apartment. I had a heavy denim blanket that I would drape over, kind of wedging in between the rod, the hanger rod. What do you call that? Anyway, I had a blanket that would sit there to try to muffle and block out the sound, and then I would sit in the closet, and it was very, very hot, and we would do these recordings. So as you listen to this episode, just know that, again, our guest, Dr. Lisandra Zepeda-Mendoza, was not live conversating with us. These were voice memos sent in response to my emails. And my brother, I actually don't know where he was recording, but I am sitting in a closet. I'm sitting on the ground. My legs would fall asleep every single time. I'm sitting on the ground in a closet behind a blanket, and it was very, very warm. And that's the behind the scenes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking so past me can get to it, and I'll see you on the flip side. Hi, this is Devin, and I just have a quick disclaimer for anyone listening who may have a weak stomach. We chose a title for this episode that hopefully relays the theme already, but just in case, today's topic isn't for the squeamish or those prone to, turkey vulture.
Wait, what? Did you just use turkey vulture as a verb?
Yeah, because they can projectile vomit up to 10 feet.
Why?
Defensive vomiting? Why else?
That explains nothing.
Maybe I can help explain.
Good idea. Richard, allow me to introduce you to
Terry the turkey vulture.
Seriously, why are you always finding anthropomorphic animal guests?
Terry, care to explain the whole vomiting thing?
So, no explanation for me?
Sure, yeah. Basically, if I feel threatened, I'll puke in your face.
Oh god.
Yeah, in my stomach, acid is some pretty harsh stuff on account of the fact that I can basically eat dead things for a living. So, you wouldn't want to get that stuff in your eyes.
That sounds awful.
Are you threatening me? I swear I'll...
Richard, what's wrong with... Stop threatening her.
I'm not. I'm just saying it's gross.
He's raising his voice.
All right, you know what? Everyone calm down, okay?
Fine.
Fine.
Anyway, like I was saying before, Richard started threatening me.
I wasn't.
It's like super soaker pepper spray, but it also comes in handy to just shed a few pounds so we can take off. We tend to gorge ourselves a bit, which means we have to wait a while to fly, which makes us pretty vulnerable. So, we puke. It's like a plane dumping cargo.
Fascinating, right?
I mean, yeah, but also really gross.
Are you threatening me?
No,
No,
what
you
about
think that you can threaten me?
What about that sentence sounds... No, hey, please don't do that. Oh my god. Oh my god, Devin, please do something about... Oh my god. Ow. Oh. Oh my god.
I'm Devin.
I'm Richard.
And this is A Wildlife, a new podcast from the wildlife.blog about curiosity, discovery, and all things wild.
How do you want to get started? Do you just want to jump straight into it?
Sure, I mean, yeah, I think we can do that. Well, okay, maybe let's just explain what we're doing here first.
Okay, sounds good. Last time, we did an episode busting bat myths as the first part of an intermittent series called Myth Understood.
Right, and if you heard that episode, you might remember that we very briefly mentioned some recently published research, and well, today we have an episode that is sort of a part 2 to that part of that last episode. But it also dives a little bit deeper into a topic that we both just really couldn't stop thinking about. So today we have a story that takes us all the way from Copenhagen to the rainforest of South America.
From the belly of the beast to its excrement.
As we explore nature's vampires.
But these vampires are nowhere near Romania, right?
Yeah, nowhere near Romania.
That is the voice of Marie Lisandra Zepeda-Mendoza, who recently finished her postdoc in Copenhagen, Denmark, and whose recently published research on vampire bats is at the center of this story.
Just for clarification, where can vampire bats be found?
They are actually only found in from mid-Mexico down to South America. And this is one of the cool things about vampire bats, because even though bats are all over the world, vampire bats can only be found in that region.
In all likelihood, you've never actually seen a vampire bat. Movies and television seem to always use another creepier looking species as a stand-in, much like how they tend to use hawk sounds for eagles, probably because eagle sounds aren't nearly as appealing. But that's another story. Anyway,
the teeth, they are very characteristic. So you can easily, I would say, differentiate them from the other bats.
They are small, brown, overall a pretty standard looking bat, with beady eyes, triangular ears.
So you also have like special teeth.
2 small, sharp buck teeth and a flared out nose.
There are 3 species of vampire bats, and the 3 species of vampire bats, they look a little bit different. The one that we studied, the common vampire bat, is the ugliest one of the 3.
Yeah, bats definitely differ a lot on the cute scale, with some of them looking like mini-winged dogs like fruit bats, and others looking like little demons like wrinkle-faced bats. So, I know you have been on this kick, and don't get me wrong, but what is so interesting about them?
Well, because they are what are known as true obligate sanguivores.
That it survives solely off of blood that's obligate sanguivore.
Wait. Sanguivore. Like a Sanguinar Vampiris is the name for vampirism in the Elder Scrolls series.
Right.
But why is that so important? I mean, there are a lot of animals that eat or drink blood, like ticks or mosquitoes, or bed bugs, leeches.
Yeah, but that's just it. Vampire bats are mammals. All those other ones, they're insects or arachnids or something else, not mammals.
And that's why the vampire bats are so special.
The more you know.
As far as even other vertebrates that are obligate sanguivores, well,
In the basal part of the vertebrates, there are the lampreys, and they actually, in the first stage of their lives, they feed off filtering like whales, and then they have a metamorphosis and they change completely, and then they live off of blood only.
Richard, have you ever seen the mouth of a lamprey?
No.
Why don't you pull one up real quick?
Okay, 1 second here.
Do 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 do, not copyright infringement, because I'm gonna change the tune.
Oh, holy Christ.
Yeah,
That looks like it's from a horror movie.
right?
That makes me not want to go in the water.
Complete stuff of nightmares, right? Oh, by the way, we have
Okay.
those in Lake Superior.
What? That's not just like deep in the ocean?
Nope.
That's actually at a place where people swim all the time.
Yeah. They're an invasive species in the Great Lakes system. And the ocean.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's just so many teeth.
They survive mostly off of blood and other bodily fluids, but they have been found with vertebrae and organs and all sorts of other fun stuff in their stomachs as well. So basically, they just latch onto the side of their host and live off of them like a parasite for really as long as they can.
And there are other birds, like the vampire finch, that sometimes eats blood, but it's not the only thing it eats.
Wait, a bird?
Yep, a bird. There are actually a few different kinds of birds that do this, but the one that she's mentioning here is the aptly named vampire finch. They live on 2 of the main islands in the Galapagos island system. They're actually really closely related to another bird from that system called the sharp-beaked finch. And, really they survive mostly on what you'd regularly expect a bird to eat. Insects and seeds and things like that. But sometimes they'll go ahead and peck away at, like, the flesh of a blue-footed booby or other birds and drink the blood that comes out.
That's so weird. I would have never expected a bird to drink blood.
And that's within all vertebrates. All vertebrates that drink blood. That's not just within mammals.
That's why the vampire bats are so special.
And the idea that a mammal can survive off of blood, that right there is astonishing in itself.
Well, why exactly is that?
Well, because there's not really much in it. There's tons of water, and just a tiny percentage of it is actually nutrients, but it's mostly proteins. And if your diet is almost only proteins, then you may have problems with urea.
Urea is a colorless crystalline compound. It's the main nitrogenous waste product that results from breaking down protein in mammals, and it's excreted in urine. Then, it is blood, right? So it might contain some pathogens.
Mainly viral pathogens.
So you'd think that the whole idea of drinking blood from another creature would be incredibly dangerous.
And it's just gross. Just very unsanitary.
Right. And really, this was the whole point of her research, to figure out how they're able to do this.
So, I know you're probably getting to it, but what exactly prompted her curiosity in vampire bats? I mean, she lives in Copenhagen, right? And vampire bats are a world away.
Sure.
Yeah, it actually started a little bit funny. When I first came to Denmark, to Copenhagen, I was an intern in the group of my later PhD supervisor, Tom Gilbert. And one of his projects at that time was to identify which mammals are in a forest without, or forest or jungle, without using camera traps for conservational studies, or just to see which species are there.
You see, there's a lot of importance in knowing what animals live where in relation to a lot of things like policymaking, conservation, prioritization of efforts, basic ecological understanding, a ton of things. And researchers are really always looking for new ways of doing this.
And the way in which they were doing it was with leeches.
Leeches?
Yeah.
Leeches.
So basically, leeches would be gathered from certain areas where they were hoping to examine the biodiversity, and they'd extract the blood because, well, leeches drink blood, right?
Oh, that's cool. So they used the blood that was in the leeches and found the DNA to see what they were feeding on?
Right, and they'd sequence the DNA looking for certain markers
Special pieces of DNA.
that could distinguish which mammalian species were living in the area through the lens of a leech.
It's a pretty smart method.
Then someone had the realization, well, wait, leeches aren't the only animals here that drink blood. We've got vampire bats.
And so I was analyzing this data. But I was actually not really interested on it because I didn't want to see what they ate. I wanted to see why they ate what they ate.
And that's how the idea was born.
So I went to Tom,
Her supervisor,
and I told him, Tom, I want to study this, so I need you to get me the vampire bat genome.
and then he said,
Huh, yeah, sounds cool. All right, let's do it.
then within a few days, he was contacting his collaborators and began this grassroots crowdsourced effort to begin.
The sequencing of the vampire bat genome. He was really supportive. Oh my god, I love Tom. He's a really good supervisor.
That's pretty awesome. I love the sort of international team effort behind this.
Right?
Wait a second. But in order to sequence the genome, don't they need some sort of biological sample? So, I mean, were they able to somehow, like, catch live bats or what?
Yeah, you're totally right, but no captive bats, no. I mean, they already had portion sequence elsewhere, but
Did they use more blood?
no, I mean, that would have been pretty difficult. Besides, the bigger question here sort of revolves around digestion. So more importantly,
Poop?
poop.
We had to get some fecal samples of vampire bats and of bats with other diets and sequence the microbiome of the fecal samples. And so the microbiome is all the microbes that are in there. Well, the microbiota, technically speaking. The microbiota is all the microbes that are in there. And so you sequence them, and then you can see who they are and what they are doing there.
So, like how we have a microbiome, or all these microbes that live within us that help us digest certain things or help our immune response, vampire bats have the same thing.
Exactly.
And so it was really difficult to get all these fecal samples from the different bats. It took me like a year and a half to get all the samples that I needed.
Why so long?
Well, they had to contact a lot of different collaborators around the world, and they had to wait a really long time to get those samples, partially because they had to get a lot of permits, like export permits for, well, poop. It's a biological sample. It could carry different diseases, who knows what.
Yeah, it was rather stressful. Oh yeah, and then after we got all the samples and we got all the sequencing, I had to set up all the pipelines for the analysis of the sequences and compare them and then make sense of the results.
So let me get this straight. They collected fecal matter from different types of bats to basically look at the microbiota and determine which of those was not like the other, hoping to see if vampire bats had a special set or something like that, right?
Bingo.
And what they'd find.
So when I was looking at the results, I thought, oh my god, this is very clear. It couldn't be clearer. And that was very, very surprising.
And that is a complete rarity in science. Science isn't like you see it in the movies where it's this clean lab and things just happen and they work and fall into place almost immediately. No, more often than not, results don't line up or you find something that was unexpected. But this was one of those rare moments where it was different.
That's what we wanted, and that's why we chose that model of a study, because we thought, okay, if there's anything here, since this species has such an extreme weird diet, whatever that has to be there is going to be seen pretty clear.
What exactly did they see?
The genes of the bacteria in the microbiota were perfectly equipped for handling